the complexity and profile is so different to what it was 10 years ago. You've got these little nuances of people having unusual incomes, like I'm a YouTube streamer, or and so many people fall into that silo now of not being your bog standard sort of box ticking resi mortgage. I think with that's only going to get more complex as time goes on. There's only going to be more people who need that more specialist route to help support their financial needs.
Hi, I'm Michael Allison, Commercial Director at Roma Finance, and welcome to another episode of RomaTalks, when I'm joined from people from across the property ecosystem. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Andy Shields from Barcadia Media. Hi, Andy.
Hello, Michael.
So obviously I know you, which is good. So that'll be boring if I try and explain who you are. So why don't you explain who you are to everybody else who's watching?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So as Mike says, I'm Andy Shields. I own a couple of businesses that operate in the property and intermediary mortgage space. So my predominant business is Barcadia Media, predominantly a publisher, educator for the mortgage intermediary circuit. We've got a few publications that sit underneath that brand. So our flagship is Financial Reporter. About 20,000 mortgage intermediaries and specialist intermediaries read that publication. So huge reach on there. And then we have our property publication, Property Reporter, which services the professional landlord, estate agent space. You know that well. So yeah, there's kind of touches in each part of the ecosystem there. We're one of the biggest educators in the UK for predominantly the intermediary market. So we do a whole host of events and educational propositions online to boost portfolios and educate brokers. The other side of the business is made events, so that's more kind of large scale exhibitions, conferences. We do a lot of third party events through that business as well. So again, educating intermediaries, brokers on the full kind of financial services ecosystem. So not just mortgages, but specialist lending, protection, everything kind of. So yeah, quite a big reach in that space.
So what made you get into it? How did you get into it?
I'm a designer by trade, so I did design at university, and it's classic. I mean, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later on, but I grew up in the Northwest, got a design job, got a design qualification, couldn't get a job for love and money, ended up selling loans on the phone for back in the pre-Lehman Brothers collapse, doing 110% LTV mortgages on the phone. Have you got a pulse? You've got a mortgage kind of thing. So I was doing that for a bit, and then kind of with my creative background, met my now business partner, and we kind of came up with this idea that we'd sort of launch a platform for brokers to connect. That didn't do particularly well, but what we found is they were reading the news on there. So we launched a news publication that was fact-driven, no sort of biased, getting the news out quickly as possible to kind of intermediaries, and it just blew up from there. Next thing, we had an office and a journalist, and the rest is history.
Because obviously it comes through. One of the emails I do read every day. You know, okay. I do get loads. It comes in and you click. But it is always it's finger on the pulse stuff, isn't it? Yeah. Something happens in the marketplace, and you guys are normally out within minutes, really.
Yeah, it's a big part of our proposition. That's the key bit. We don't tend to try and, without sort of going into the details, like spin anything. It's about getting that information out concisely to intermediaries so they can act on it and utilise it quickly. So, and as you say, it's a saturated market. There's a lot of people out there doing it. So the quicker you're out with that information, the better the response.
Well, the more clicks.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So obviously you went into that so you design, selling loans, having a go, to then putting it up. What is it that drives you forward to keep adding these different strands to it and different opportunities? What is it that?
Do you know what? I think you have to have a bit of an entrepreneur in you, don't you? To ground. I don't think I knew that when I started out, but you have to back yourself. You have to, that feeling, that drive. If you don't have that, it's not as fluent as it might be. I think the most kind of exciting thing that we do across both Barcadia and Made that gets me up in the morning, so to speak, is that influence and change. Big chunks of our portfolio are education driven. You know yourself, Michael, like the market's just changing all the time at a different rate. We're seeing a huge kind of appetite from intermediaries to diversify their portfolios more so than ever before. You just look at the sort of protection piece as an example. When I started in this industry, that was a really unsexy part of the market that mortgage intermediaries often sort of overlooked. It was just, your resi mortgages is where you placed your cases and that was it. But now people are taking it a lot more seriously, and the education that we provide in the industry to sort of to influence brokers to improve their businesses, to add more to their sort of kit, and do more business. Making influencing that change is exciting. And you said we do our diversity inclusion, equity and inclusion awards, the Women's Recognition Awards. That's such an exciting program to be a part of, because it really feels like you're recognising these incredible women and people from diverse backgrounds in the industry, and you're influencing real change. And when you kind of get to that point, that's a real driving factor. It's exciting.
It's interesting that women's recognition is a real good example of, it's now become a real big fixture within the calendar. So from that small event that first happened, and it was, will it work, won't it? It's now such a big part of everybody's calendar, I guess. And we've been lucky enough at Roma to win a couple of awards at that, which is great, because it gives you a chance to showcase something that it's not about rates, it's not about loans, it's about how you turn up as a business and as colleagues. And having an awards that celebrates that is
I think of. It's ultimately like this is my business. Everything has to have a commercial sort of benefit to it, because otherwise, you've all got mortgages and bills to pay. Yeah. But something like the Women's Recognition Awards, when you see that kind of finalist announcement drop on social media or LinkedIn, whatever ecosystem it means, and what it means to people, and especially where we've positioned that awards, that it's not, with no disrespect, sort of just rewarding the household names and sort of leaders in the industry who rightly deserve recognition. It's the mortgage administrators, or the people starting out in the careers, or people from all walks of careers and professionalisms, and seeing what it means to them, and seeing those email responses, and even if they don't ultimately win the award, that's great, isn't it? That gets you out of bed in the morning. I've said that a few times.
It does, yeah. But the videos as well. It was the video with the kids.
Yeah,
talking about the mums, or the sisters, or their aunties. It was amazing.
Yeah, that was a nice piece, wasn't it? There were a few tears in the room, but it's real, isn't it? It feels real, doesn't it? So,
well, I suppose ultimately, when you're a parent, or whoever you are, you generally want to make somebody feel proud. And it starts with yourself, and like you say, so the recognition that somebody gets. But if they're getting the opportunity to be proud of what they're doing because of how they do it, not necessarily what they do. That's the key bit, isn't it? It's how you do something, and measuring that and celebrating that is really, really strong.
Yeah, definitely. I think our industry broadly should be more proud of what we do as a whole. I talk about this a lot. We launched this year. A big part of our piece at the moment is celebrating future leaders and sort of promoting the industry more broadly, because there's we want new talent coming into the industry. I'm a classic example of one of those people that fell into the industry, as we've discussed already. There's not enough people that choose this as a career, but this is a space that we get people into their first homes. We get people building the bones of their first property portfolio with Roma or whatever it might be. It's such a massive part of the social sort of ecosystem. Like, we should be more proud of that. We should be, it's an incredible thing that we do in this industry. So I think we should be more proud.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I agree. So I'm interested in, obviously I was at the recent event in Scotland, which was standing room only.
Yep.
Interestingly, for all the talks, normally people sort of drift out for the talks, and you end up with like 20 people in there, but standing room only. Are you seeing that there's more and more an appetite to hear live commentary and understanding what people are talking about in the market?
Yeah, it's interesting because the market is we'll probably say this a lot. It's changing a lot, and technology is a huge driving factor in that. So the sort of role of the traditional broker or intermediary is ultimately going to change dramatically over the next 10 years. And with that, it creates a bit of uncertainty of whether that sort of education piece, or whether those in-person events, where their position will be, what value they'll still offer. But I think as brokers are having to diversify more, take things like specialist lending, which is a broad sort of umbrella for a whole host of different products, but they're taking it a lot more seriously than they ever have done in my professional career. I think it means that, it ultimately means that we're seeing more appetite for these events, because, and it's led by the educational, that event that you were at, we had sessions on protection, we had sessions on buy-to-let and adverse, and a real sort of, matrix of different sort of product offerings. So we feel, and we're seeing, that there's more appetite than ever for intermediaries to get out there and learn and take something tangible they can go home and implement into their business. So yeah, we're seeing real buoyancy.
I think there's probably more hunting than farming going on these days. Because as the demand restricts, like you said, maybe there's not as many new landlords entering. It's more now property professionals. There's not as many people purchasing homes or first homes as there was because of the whatever it could be geopolitical, it could be local issues, whatever it may be. People are having to turn more into a hunter than a farmer, which means that they have to broaden that toolkit out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there any particular product that you're seeing brokers, advisors move towards that they perhaps haven't in the past? Or
I think, we'll say specialist lending a lot in this space. So I was reading just before I met you today, Michael, that specialist lending, securitized mortgages is like a third of all mortgages that go through now are classed as specialist lending. So, and that's a growing number. So the complexities of the average borrower is only going to shift and change over the next decade, probably before I retire, by the time I retire. So there just seems to be a lot more. You look at MA London, for example, that's our flagship London event, 19th of May, not to plug it too hard, but
we'll put the phone number here, the tickets.
In a few weeks, that's our flagship. We expect about 1,000 brokers through the door. You look at an event like that, when we started out in the exhibition gig a few years ago, you'd have a couple of theatres. The predominant focus was first-time buyers, residential mortgages, your high street sessions. You look at that, the agenda for that day now, there's perhaps two sort of focused on resi. The rest is just specialist lending. It's an adverse session, a commercial mortgages session, a specialist lending specific. We've got one on buy-to-let. So that's the biggest trend. That's where the appetite is from intermediaries now and brokers. And a lot of those traditional brokers who relied on resis and PTs and remortgages, frankly, if they don't get on the bus and start taking those other products so seriously, then they're going to be in trouble. So,
and do you see that maintaining, or if there became the ability to be a farmer rather than a hunter again? So if there was a bit like when we all came out of COVID for the first time and everyone was moving house, I think everyone moved everywhere. Houses were going up for sale and selling within a day. If that kind of approach came back, do you think that some people would revert back to type, or do you think this is here, specialist lending's here to stay now?
I'd like to think it's here to stay. I mean, look, you look at it. You look at the profile of the average borrower now, and I'm no expert on this, Mark. You're probably better positioned than me to sort of come back on this. But the complexity and profile is so different to what it was 10 years ago. You've got these little nuances of people having unusual incomes, like I'm a YouTube streamer, or and so many people fall into that silo now of not being your bog standard sort of box ticking resi mortgage. I think with that's only going to get more complex as time goes on. There's only going to be more people who need that more specialist route to help support their financial needs. And I think with market, tumultuous market and the challenges that we're all facing in terms of the products themselves, it breeds innovation, doesn't it? It's challenging. It's difficult to be a business owner. It's difficult to be somebody looking for a loan. I imagine it's more difficult than it's ever been to be a lender in this sort of economy. So that's challenging. But out of that challenge, in my experience over the last almost 20 years, innovation comes, doesn't it? Yeah. And then you get new exciting things. Bridging loans was just a whisper on the wind when I started out, and you look at that market now. So you would only think that this will drive innovation, change, and it'll just keep evolving and stay exciting. I'd like to think. You've got to be optimistic, haven't you?
I think you have to be. Whatever, even if it's a volatile scenario, volatility creates opportunity, and like you say, innovation. And if you are there and you're on the front foot, you can take advantage of that, because ultimately, regardless of what the economy is doing, left, right and centre, there will still be transactions that happen. There'll still be people who can buy something well. There'll still be some people who can build something well. It's about having the right innovation and structure to capture those people and give them the service that they need. Yeah. And if it means that it's more of a restricted market, then you've got to make sure that you're really on your A game as a lender, certainly. Yeah. So that's obviously the work side of it. Is that the only bit of work that you do, the media? Have you got any other? Because you said entrepreneurial.
I've invested in I've invested in a hospitality business back in my hometown. So me and a couple of business partners, a couple of years ago, had that classic sort of aspiration of we'd love to own a bar. met a chap who worked for Barcadia, and he sort of came in as the partner, opened our first bar, opened another bar, somehow ended up in front of Blackpool Town Council pitching for a food hall and market, won that.
Yeah.
So now we operate 3 sites, one of which is a food hall with lots of different traders in it and bars in it. So yeah, it's about a £2.5 million business, that. Now, hospitality is a tough gig at the moment, so it's not money in our pockets by any means. But yeah, that's quite fun. I think, you know, that creative background that I mentioned earlier, it was an opportunity to scratch that itch and, you know, do something with a little bit of sort of light pressure, you know, because it was sort of an investment opportunity. And
so that's sort of like you've got the 2 different publications and the digital and print and all that kind of stuff. You've got the events. You've also got the awards.
Yeah.
So they're separate than the events, really, because the events is about content. Then you got the awards, and you got your businesses as well. Yep. So you got nothing else to do in your life.
3 kids under 4.
So you still got 3 kids under 4.
Yeah, wow. I've got three kids under 4 that take up most of my time at the weekend. Yeah, which is great. I think, you know, the hardest thing with that is I was 41 in March. So when you've spent sort of most of your adult life just being an entrepreneur, driving, pushing, you know, if you're going to work a long day, you've got it in the tank. You just keep going because you're excited, you're chasing this thing. And then for your landscape to completely shift, and my little boy was up for probably about 4 hours out of 7 last night, it changes things, and you have to find that work-life balance, and you have to show up at home and at work, and once you're at the sweet spot and get it, it's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, listen, my advice is don't have any more.
No.
And then enjoy it when they become self-sufficient, because you've got to think, if you've got 3 under 4, sooner or later you're going to have 3 teenagers.
Yeah.
And 3 under 18. Yeah. So it's
I've got my little boy kicking a ball now. It's Project Mbappe. Got to get him signed by Manchester United, and then he's my pension fund then.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe I might invest in that. Maybe that's the thing. And what about any spare time you get? What do you do?
I sing in a band.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do. So I do a little bit of that. I do a couple of gigs a month here and there up and around the northwest. So
what type of band is it? What type of music?
It's an 80s cover band, which isn't particularly cool to say, but we sort of do a bit of a rock twist. So we do all your sort of classic, like cheesy 80s numbers, but we sort of rock it up with big guitars and have a dance around. So that's quite fun. We get around, play a few festivals, and that's a good crack.
And the name of the band is?
The band is the Pat Sharp Boys.
Pat Sharp Boys. Right, okay, I'll keep an eye out for that across the northwest.
Go watch us.
I will do.
Or maybe you don't.
I will do. When I finish going to everything else that you've got, maybe that's what I'll do, is I'll come along and watch that. Listen, Andy, I could talk for ages. Yeah. It's great to see you as always. It's some real good insights there, so thank you very much. Thanks for joining us.
No, thanks, Matt. Cheers.
And thanks for watching us, everybody at home. Thank you.